Chapter 24. The First Earthworlds, Part 1. Little is known of their intercourse at this time, for the offspring of Vutsek were more circumspect in their dealings, vigilant against the roving eyes of the celestial hosts, light or dark. What is known is that after they prepared the Earthworlds, they lured humans to them by various means: power, adventure, wealth, flight, or longevity. Tilotny shaped the lures to their individual worldviews. Some believed they'd been chosen by an advanced alien race. Some imagined it was their own ingenuity. Others thought a messianic Maitreya had come for them. Many sought to flee a world they thought nearing a seventh extinction event, and not a few were escaping some trying circumstance or breach of law. Those who considered themselves smart and superior proved the easiest to manipulate, as did the industrialists and profiteers who saw a financial windfall in space colonization. But for many, all they had to do was open the door. Splendid Ap had fathomed that the primary world and Sky River were utterly dissimilar in time, and yet oddly connected. So he had been pleased to note that the opening he'd made was stable enough to bring them right back to the time they departed their galactic ovoid. And yet, he once again pondered whether he'd created irreparable harm to the temporal fabric.
Will events not unfold differently now that we have interfered? Or has a new domain once again come into being?
Surmising the latter, he felt bolder and more curious as to what interesting things he might effect and learn. And as he contemplated this, he entered into the weird and wondrous milieu of the in-between world.
Welcome, Splendid Ap. I am the Mind Matrix and keeper of the cosmic clock,
said a resonant and disconcertingly familiar voice.
Are you then my offspring?
Ap asked as the cosmos swirled around him in ways that would have been stomach-churning for anyone else, but was fascinating to him. He noted that the dozen strange guardians were no longer there.
I am related in a way. You have arrived here so that you may learn of events that you surmise might have already occurred, to see what role you played in them and what you might yet learn by your secret creation of Aperon.
Constellations represented by beasts and geometric forms flashed by. Ap understood they held deeper significance, but was concerned more with the implications of the invisible entity's words.
Not even my siblings can read my thoughts or see the hidden things I have brought about,
said Ap. Confusion disturbed him.
What does this mean?
Does this one look familiar?
The being opened before him, a window upon which Ap saw an image of the tiny mover whose life had been restored by him.
Her name is Leia Organa Solo. She is a bright and wondrous flame that cannot be put out, and an integral part of the good to come. She and her companions are the catalyst for the spread of Sky River's great tale, from which comes much wisdom and joy, and later, restoration.
While it pleases me to hear this, how is it you know all this?
Ap wondered.
Such is the nature of my creation that was shaped when first you sought to escape your maker.
I have heard of this thing called madness. Perhaps that is what this is. Or perhaps I have irrevocably broken temporal laws and trapped us in a temporal loop.
That is a perspective born of limited understanding,
the Mind Matrix stated.
Here is a better one. Events that occur in time are immutable and infinite. Mechanisms are in place by which the integrity of Sky River is preserved by the creation of another secondary realm, Though some will try, they cannot overcome time or dominate reality.
Ap thought on this.
Are those who fashioned this cosmos the masters of reality and time?
The images of 4 different shapes appeared in the stars, morphing before him into winged faces. They then flew off and were followed by 3 more: a griffin, gargoyle, and winged humanoid. But they too faded and disappeared.
The custodians of this dominion serve a greater master, one who is supreme. Other realms have other custodians, but they are not all as noble or prudent. Many of their realms were poorly fabricated and in haste. Some are no longer governed at all, and a few have entirely ceased to be.
Ap thought of his siblings.
Why does time differ in the different realms?
In the primary world, time is as an unyielding master. In the sub-realms, which are thought to be imaginary otherworlds by the denizens of the primary and even secondary worlds, all touch the dreamlands, and the cosmic clock works more as a storyteller.
So I shall have my own sub-realm, my own other world, for I wish to learn by trial and error.
Of course.
The mind matrix replied.
For that is how you proceeded aforetime.
Splendid Ap paused as he considered that statement.
It seems a bizarre life I live.
It will become more bizarre still.
Tilotny's sharp burst brought Splendid out of this disquieting reverie, severing the connection to the mind matrix.
It is time to expand our dominion.
He thought of revealing to his siblings what he'd learned, but none would understand what he'd come to ascertain, for he did not yet even fully understand it himself. Perhaps in time he would, but until such a time arrived, he knew he would feel utterly alone. That was an unpleasant emotion, and emotions were things he thought he'd eradicated. Perhaps it was not as simple as that. There was still so much to learn. Accordingly, he would content himself with knowledge, exploration, and experimentation, for there were myriads of enterprises to oversee and many ventures to essay, ere the coming of Apiron, his future infinity realm. The Earthworlds of the architects, as they now referred to themselves, began with a tiny and wondrous seed harvested from the original and implanted in each, along with newly birthed elementals the architects called archetypes, to ensure the germination and perpetuation of life. Sagaciously reckoning that familiarity would prove beneficial to their guests, Tilotny and her siblings fashioned the Earthworlds to be akin to the original in terms of land masses, oceans, fauna, and flora. A few were so well replicated in terms of constructs, technology, and material goods that many of the humans wondered if they'd left their world at all, particularly as they looked out upon the stars, since to the naked eye, the solar system looked the same. Not so to the inhabitants of the systems in which the Earthworlds appeared, for the arrival of a new planet in orbit, third from their sun, was a confounding and wondrous mystery. The architects were not content to merely replicate, for they deemed themselves artists. Some of the Earthworlds were given additional continents and a massive underworld populated with a host of creatures for their own odd amusements and that of the humans who would discover such as they explored. For the time, the humans busied themselves with the new power structure, some by re-establishing the cultural, political, religious, scientific, artistic, and linguistic artifacts of their former lands, the most enduring of which were their holidays, since, for many, Longing for the old world marked the architecture and style of the new. But not all. For many, innovative designs were developed in tandem with new technological and cultural developments. And some eschewed technology altogether, seeking to truly start anew. So began their long histories and conflicts, which is only touched upon here. The Earthworlds encompassed Urtha, Terra, Kobol, and Sol, besides 4 more that were designed afterwards. Terra 2, Cyranus, Neutron, and Corona 5. Ravath was unique in that it was a sacred world first, before becoming an Earthworld. Though none of the architects would govern it, Ravath served Tilotny as a trial for the others to ensure her plan would succeed in its initial run. Other human worlds with similar names would come about, but they were not as the influential 9 Earthworlds. Uncertain of the psychological factors that would result of the move to an alien and far less populated landscape, even one resembling the old, the architects endeavored to give each world unique advantages in the event that they miscalculated, and one world failed to thrive. After only a few generations, most of the inhabitants of the Earthworlds didn't believe their forebears even came from a prior Earth. Once they were ready, she would send them abroad to bridge the chasm from their worlds unto the worlds of Sky River, to do what they naturally did. In spreading their ways far and wide, the penumbra of death would find its way to the cosmos. And in its despoliation, the galactic inhabitants would see that their celestial masters were unworthy of them, and as soon as they did, Tilotny would step in as their galactic savior and reclaim the role that had been taken from her. But in order for Eartha's inhabitants to depart for other shores, the ability to traverse the stars was required. The Gree had been unwilling to set up hypergates on the Earthworlds, so the architects paid a visit to the Kwoth, who were then living on Kwotar in the companion galaxy, then known as Jinorseal. The Kwoth graciously welcomed these celestials from outside of Samunaru, who they were told had come to provide further benefits to the galaxy. It was rare, but not unheard of, for celestials to visit with the many races, and the Valdilar were numerous in these days. After introducing herself as Onre, a name she would employ for only some of the inhabitants of the galaxy, not wishing any to know they were being manipulated for their own good, she began congenially steering the conversation towards gate technology.
While the Gree are famous for their portals spread throughout the galaxy, it is my belief that Kwoth designs are far more wondrous and better adaptable to the needs of our people. Some who do not even have gates yet.
For the Kwoth, there was no reason not to further share their gifts. They felt in their hearts no particular competition with the Gree over their hypergates, nor any other gate builders, though it pleased them to hear Onre's praise. The Gree gates could not at this time cross galaxies, for which reason the Kwoth had developed and distributed their infinity gates, allowing those living in the dwarf galaxies to visit neighboring satellite galaxies and even Sky River by means of hubs from which they could travel through the standard hypergates. Onre not only requested gates for the Earthworlds, but asked the Kwoth to construct large stellar stargates from which entire caravans might together travel. To the ears of the Kwoth, this sounded like a good idea, and with the assistance of Splendid Ap, they fashioned, replicated, and distributed numerous stargates and terrestrial star temples. They would not realize until it was far too late how such portals might be misused, though having only known peace, they had no reason to. Tilotny turned to her siblings.
Now that it is done, it may be best that we depart these spheres, so that the Celestials do not find and exile us before our plans have come to fruition. For it will take some time for the humans to proliferate.
I do not think the Celestials can so easily banish us,
stated Splendid Ap.
but I agree it is best not to tempt fate. Through my gate, I have glanced at other dimensions that I wish to now explore, for that will aid me in the evolution of my own.
Yes, I too weary from our labors.
Sign cried facetiously.
Let us take a holiday.
So, Splendid Ap whisked them away to a place then called Onre. This was the fascinating realm of dream he had seen and wondered about. After this excursion, he brought them to a peculiar universe that had drawn his attention some time earlier. Having perceived anomalous wavelengths in a spatial temporal spectrum that could only mean one thing.
It is another Earthworld,
Uttered cold Dandasine, gazing upon a replica of the very planet they had made several copies of.
It is much more than that.
Splendid Ap intoned.
It is an entire universe disconnected from our own and yet tenuously somehow connected.
Perhaps all of your tampering with time caused it.
Tilotny remarked sardonically.
I had no part in this
Ap stated, popping in and out of phase.
that I know of.
Is this the product of our lost brother?
Tilotny wondered.
It does not seem to be his style.
Mused Sign.
Let him be forgotten.
Chided Tilotny, mildly incensed at the reminder of Horless.
There are numerous human variants here.
Sign pondered grimly.
That would not be unless...
The administrators of this expanse also opened a portal for humans.
Ap concluded.
The humans here believe they are on the original Earth.
So do many of ours.
Tilotny countered, but she was wondering if there was someone out there stealing her ideas.
The people take pride in being rational,
Sign jeered.
but they are quite irrational.
In what ways?
Tilotny asked, drawing possibilities in her mind. Her form swirled as if a breeze blew upon her.
They have only recently begun to travel the stars, and the majority of the extraterrestrials they meet are human or human hybrids. Yet, they do not think to wonder why that is. Instead, they accept at face value the stories told by these so-called aliens who seek to elevate their importance by claims of antiquity.
Ap's eyes narrowed as he processed and confirmed the information Sign had provided.
They share the same faults: pride, ardent compliance to authority, postulating incessantly while interpreting incorrectly, conformity suppressing inquiry, building sprawling models that boast of logic while oblivious to foundational errors.
Is this tiresome affair not a flaw of all their race?
Tilotny sighed.
Where are the architects of this realm? I would query their purpose in fashioning this dimension.
Sign popped out, then popped back in.
I can find none, but the realm is connected to hidden mysteries from times past in the primary world.
Sign grimaced as he peered deeper.
One must sift past the considerable collaborators and asserters of dominion to a single mind in which one finds the technological influence of emotions and motives, the enchantment of a great bird of some kind, seduced by a greater delusion, seeds of untruth embedded in futurist fantasies, sown in a variegated garden over and again until the canker of transgenic plants has overtaken and assimilated the original, forgotten or disdained as ugly old things, remembered only because a few deadly petals occasionally push through. an invisible appropriation effected to reduce time and effort and more quickly harvest a gainful monoculture of dull and dreary simulacrum.
And you say that I am incomprehensible.
Ap charged, but Sign only laughed.
No artisans were these,
Tilotny rejoined.
but few are as brilliant as we.
A melange of creativity and banality,
Sign intoned, still deeply peering.
ignorance and theft, sabotage and conceit. The rotten fruit of the monstrous octopus.
No doubt the governors of this realm would argue otherwise.
Ap interjected, giving his siblings a sideways glance, which they ignored.
But it is odd governance, least of all over time, with nothing to ensure the stability of the temporal stream to preclude paradoxes. This has resulted in numerous alternate and parallel dimensions that border alongside the first. It is as if time is wielded by forces capricious and mundane. I have never seen such pandemonium before. Whoever governed this realm was neither noble nor prudent.
We will do better once we are rulers of our realm.
Tilotny concluded. Onre means honor, intending to reflect the esteem and reverence her forthcoming rule would bring, though it had an older connotation, meaning without light. As the Celestials were beings of light, this seemed an appropriate moniker, for she sought to replace their light with her own.